pair of high-profile interviews leading to some high-profile answers that have been making some headlines. Now, the first set, it comes from the president. Now, he's interviewed in a long piece in the current New Yorker about his presidency, race, and marijuana. Now, when it comes to his presidency, here's what the president had to say. We're in charge of the largest organization on earth, and our capacity to do some good, both domestically and abroad, is unsurpassed, even if nobody is paying attention. And that watching Lincoln, it was interesting in part because you watched what obviously was a fictionalized account of the president I most admire, and there was such a gap between him and me that it made you want to be better. How about race and popularity, specifically with him in his presidency? The president said, there's no doubt that there's some folks who just really dislike me because they don't like the idea of a black president. Wait, Dominic. But also, he said, the flip side of it is that there are some black folks and maybe some white folks who really like me and give me the benefit of the doubt precisely because I'm a black president. And then came this kind of bombshell when it came to marijuana, which he prefaced by saying, quote, as has been well documented, I smoked pot as a kid and I view it as a habit and a vice. Not very different from the cigarettes that I smoked as a young person up and through a big chunk of my adult life. Then, headline number one, I don't think, talking about marijuana, that it's any more dangerous than alcohol. And when asked if marijuana was less dangerous than alcohol, Obama said it is in terms of its impact on the individual consumer, before adding, it's not something I encourage, and I've told my daughters I think it's a bad idea and a waste of time, not very healthy. And as for legalizing pot, Obama said he seemed to lend some at least qualified support. Middle-class kids don't get locked up for smoking pot, and poor kids do. He went on to say, and African-American kids and Latino kids are more likely to be poor and less likely to have resources and the support to avoid unduly harsh penalties. We shouldn't be locking up kids or individual users for long stretches of jail time when some of the folks who are writing those laws have probably done the same thing. Okay, let me ask you guys, in terms of priority, and Andrew, I'll start with you. What was the biggest headline that came out of this for you?
Well, I mean, he also went on to say that he supports the legalized marijuana efforts in Washington and Colorado. That was pretty big news. The fact that he thinks that it's less harmful than alcohol is big news also. But I kind of got to go with the race issue on this too. That there are people who oppose that, and he's the first I think we've heard him recognize this. That there are people who oppose his presidency because of race. But the other part is I'm not sure if he was trying to balance this just to make everybody feel better. That there are people who will support him just because of race, including, you know, not just black voters, but white voters too. I think that's probably the bigger takeaway in the general scheme of things.
He did try to have it both ways a little, Dominic, like he's done for almost 5 years now, but he has, Dominic's been saying on camera and off camera, wait till he gets out of office. Wait till you hear what he's got to say about how he's treated because he is a black man. There's a little bit of a hint in there, wasn't there?
Well, Richard, if you go
you want to say I told you so? Just say it. Go ahead.
I'm not going to say I told you so. Why would I say I told you so? Am I the type of guy to say I told you so?
You did tell us.
Ralph, am I the type of guy to say I told you so?
You did tell us.
No. No, not me. But anyway, I'm only joking, audience. Richard, I don't know. I'm in a good mood here. I don't know why, but I am. But
Thank you. Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
But I mean, okay, Americans are very polarized on the issue of race. Newsflash. But if you go to any beauty shop, African-American beauty shop, hair shop, women with their hair, any hair shop for men, you know,
we call it a barber shop.
A barber shop, that's what it's called. And they will, 10 out of 10 will tell you that Obama is not treated fairly solely because he is a black man. Now, when you get to pundits, they will say, oh, it's a difference in the far right. And Obama has made some mistakes. Don't get me wrong. He's made some mistakes.
How about the black pass? Do you think that that's real?
Andrew's right. That was him realizing that he had made a headline that he didn't necessarily want to make, so he was trying to balance it out on the back end. Wait until he gets out of office when he tells you what he really thinks as a black man.
If the newsflash is that he recognizes this, though, I'm curious what everybody thinks he can or should do about it.
Well, that leads me, Andrew, to a question, Jeannie, his reference to Lincoln and his reference to what you really can or can't do in this, but also what he has or hasn't been able to do versus what he thought he would have when he first walked in there, or certainly compared to his political hero, Abe Lincoln. That said a lot to me, too, that he's as frustrated as everybody else. And there almost seemed to be, and I've read a little bit more than what we were able to do for TV purposes from that article, that there was, if not defeatism, almost a resignation about the limits of really what his office can and can't do anymore.
Yeah, it was fascinating. The Lincoln quote to me, which didn't get a lot of press. I mean, I think Andrew's right. It was the marijuana quote and the comparison to alcohol and his views on that got most of the press. I think the race didn't get as much because he did that whole balanced thing. So what do you say about it? He said this. No, I'm sorry. He said this. So I thought it was fascinating, the Lincoln quote, though, because on the one hand, he seemed to be expressing this frustration that he can't possibly, emulate this guy that he has adored and loved his whole life. And then 2 seconds later, he's saying, it's this way because I'm a black man. No, it's this way. It's this way on marijuana. But I'd never tell my daughters to take it. So he almost seems to have not embraced the lessons of Lincoln. And he's right back to where he was.
One way or the other.
Yeah, he's right back. And every single thing he says in that interview, I think, except for the Lincoln quote, was this way that he has always approached things.
It will be fascinating from memoirs, and every president's got a fascinating one. Clinton talking about what, certainly in his time or his life, but what this president will say about his frustrations and what he ran up against and why he thinks that was. All right, I want to get to the other quote that made headlines, and that was from the governor of New York, where Andrew Cuomo was on a radio show analyzing the state GOP, and his answer was, shall we say, indelicate. Are they, the New York GOP, the extreme conservatives who are right to life, pro-assault weapon, anti-gay? Is that who they are, he asked? Because if that's who they are, and they're the extreme conservatives, they have no place in the state of New York because that's not who New Yorkers are. Conservatives, Republicans, a lot in the media immediately went into full flip-out mode here. Fox News basically shifted off of Benghazi to this with a headline that Cuomo said, pro-life people not welcome in New York. Ed Cox, the state party chairman in New York, frequent guest in the program, he called on the governor to apologize, and the governor's expected Republican opponent this fall, Westchester's own Rob Astorino, jumped onto Twitter Friday to say so much for tolerance on MLK weekend, Governor Cuomo, as he tells millions of New Yorkers they're not unwelcome. Hashtag bullying. Okay. Go ahead.
There's one more, because this is maybe some good comes out of it, because Sean Hannity now says that, you know what, I've had it. I'm leaving New York. I'm not welcome here. And so,
I know that everything's context, Andrew, but it is a message. Hey, if the plurality feels one way and you feel the other, find somewhere else to go.
I honestly think that he was, and I've heard the radio clip, and this was on the radio, we didn't have time to play it. He was analyzing the state of the Republican Party in New York today and trying to figure out, am I going to get one of these guys in the state Senate who I seem to be able to make a deal with and we pass the SAFE Act with, or am I going to get one of these, I'm not going to say the guy in Buffalo's name, but one of those guys who's running it. So which Republican Party was it? That being said, this is not a guy I think sure we all agree, who picks his words lightly. He knew exactly what he was saying. I think he knew exactly the reaction he was going to get. I think it stirs up his progressive base, or that he's trying to stir up on the left, and it agitates the right to a certain degree.
And Jeannie, this is kind of his MO, which is fiscal policies, put him and Pataki in the room together, basically the same guy. But on social policies, he's not only going to take the left position, but he's going to attack anyone who disagrees with him because he can read the poll numbers in New York and he wants to satisfy the progressive base. Was this a slip of the tongue, or do you think he intended to say exactly what he said and get the reaction he did?
I mean, I have to assume he intended it, and I have to say, I don't like it. I mean, I think I'm sorry, I think it's ridiculous. I think he intended to do it, and I think it's ridiculous. What benefit would he get? He is going to win this election, hands down, unless something happens. How is he going to appeal nationally if he's attacking people? This is the kind of thing that comes back to haunt you.
He's attacking the party and the party. Do you really think he's saying that anybody who's pro-life isn't welcome in New York?
That's what he said.
No, it's not.
That's exactly what he said. I heard the entire radio interview and I read the quote.
He's talking about the party and the direction the party is going in.
He said, if you are pro-life, if you are this, that's how people take it.
If you, the party, are pro-life.
Oh, so the whole party. So we should have a one-party state. You can't have government with a one-party state. I'm sorry. I think it's insane, and I think it's inane, and I think he intended it, and I think it was stupid.
He stepped in it, but I don't think he meant to. I think he was just talking, got caught up in the moment, and his guard went down for a second, and knowing him very well, and I think he said something that, but maybe the professor's right. Maybe he did it intentionally. I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, but what's the point? If he did it intentionally, I mean, I have no idea.
I don't think
but
he did.
What is the point of doing that? You can appeal to progressives with your policies, as he's done. Why attack?
Why alienate?
I mean, I mean, for what's the point, Andrew? What's the point?
He hasn't been in the headlines much lately. He hasn't been in I mean, out of the tri-state.
And you want to be in headlines like this?
Well, you got the governor across the river. He's dominating all the headlines. But how do you play to an Iowa Democratic audience or a New Hampshire Democratic audience or
You
South
don't
Carolina?
play to them by saying you want to kick pro-lifers out of your state.
If you're trying to win a Democratic primary, you do.
No, you really don't across
And
the
he
rest
didn't
of the country.
say that.
Well, on that point of consensus here at the table, we're going to take a break here. And for us Yankee fans, it was a great day. Not so much for people who don't like the Yankees, and there's more than one person at the table who feels that way. When we come back, we'll talk about what happened in Yankee land today and some of the reaction to it.